Yeah, fly people now. We're having problems with the stupid computer. It is saying, "I don't want to work. I hate you. I hate you. I don't want to work. I want to slow down to be like at a crawl pace." All because the university has set up a new stupid platform, and you know Google's Defender hates it. Google Defender every time I go to one page or another page, Google Defender, which you have to use with Google, you have to use that Google. I'm sorry, Microsoft Defender. Come on, everything is slowed down. I'm going to have to turn the computer off sometime tomorrow and boot up again because I think this is it takes every time I do that it takes an hour. Ugh. Okay, nice computer. Go post. Yes, okay. Okay, we just notified everyone we're doing it, so we got a high one person eye there. Bill Clinton, what's up? Well, hi, Bill. Uh, 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 molest any teenage girls yet, Bill? Have you? I know you quit sleeping with Hillary long ago, 22 decades ago. But who knows? Um, well, we got Troll Bill, um, Slim Shady. Um, well, that's it. I've been having a problem with the university's new classroom system. It seems to want to um, it seems to want to be a complete unfriendly system. Okay, and greetings. This is our live stream for September, on Friday. I'm sorry, I'm a little late. I was fighting with the computer today. It was like I was all ready to do it, and then computer doesn't want to work. It says no, free, and then crawl, which is you want to take a hammer to it at a certain level. Um, Last week, um, well, I mean, I got some comments. I got two comments for last week's stuff. One was about Cornoya. Someone, Ari, Aria Fredic, uh, Fredak, Fredakai 2237 says Koinonia has the meaning of participation as well. And I said, yes, that's true. Yeah, but we talked about last week what the problem with Koinonia. And I wish I'm hoping someone clipped at that because I think I have to go write it down. I didn't have any chance. I was away this week. I left right after the Saturday. Sunday we left and then we went to my mother-in-law's. My wife wanted to go see her mother because my mothers have been having health issues. Um, well, that meant I had to be doing other things. I got most of my. I've been making vast progress on my outline um, for Aristotle. I was mostly doing that with my little office laptop. Um, but I mean, I really didn't write up. I said I should have, sit down and wrote that up. I should. Um, I think I have to write that up. It solves my problem. I think it really does solve my problem about the question of how do we the difference in Germanic thinking and the idea between this Gemeinschaft, Gesellschaft problem, or communitas, societas in Latin, or in English, community, society, and the difference between them, and the thought of not only within, let's say, Germanic French sociological thinking. It does lead us to a very important problem with koinonia, because what operates in the Latin works, that the origins of the separation of these two kind of relationships, as distinctive kind. One is based on kinship, or structures, kinship, homogeneity, sameness, mechanical solidarity, and Durkheim, and then ideas of exchange, mutual exchange, utility, division of labor relationships, society. It's rational. Again, this is, you can say, in Weber's language, Gesellschaft is traditional orders, tradition and custom tends to norm, whereas Gemeinschaft would tend to have rational and legal constructions, utility-based, consent-based, where Gemeinschaft is less consent-based in that sense. There's less consent and utility. It's actually shared obligation, and that there's actually sometimes obligation imposed on you without consent, as a family relationships per se, family kin relationships. So these two concepts here of community and society, this is like this. The problem is translating it out to Greek, because you don't have this same division in ancient Greek. Koinonia seems to embrace both of these concepts, okay, in that sense. And therefore, this is what I talked about last week a little bit. We talked about that last week, along with some other things. So I need to go write that up. What I did during this last week, a new version of my note, basically the outline for Aristotle's Politics. I'm in book 7 already. I'm finished. I'm halfway I got 3 chapters on book 7 to go, and then we're done. We're done, and I have to go edit it. I have to go really do the edit. And scarily, the unedited version in 8.5 in the text I have, not the format for the book that I'm using, the book format. I've changed the format. But in A4 right now, with the font size, having hard returns after every chapter, almost, it's over 300 pages, and that's been like freaking me out. Like, oh God, this is going to be huge. My early book, the Notebook for Aristotle, this one, which is still available, and I still recommend it because it has all the images. It has lots of this kind of outlines of the text that I had for 20 things, and some things, but it also has the charts and things that I like, that I did and used. And I'm like saying, oh, okay, I understand. This is good. This is interesting. But now I'm thinking about this, and I'm saying, okay, in the new version, I can't, because the charts and stuff were a pain in the ass, because once you had the charts and the graphics, you can't make an EPUB. Okay, you just won't make an EPUB, and it's been something that I can't sell it as an EPUB. I can I have a PDF of this as a PDF, but not as an EPUB, and it's very problematic in the sense trying to deal with. You can't sell. I can't sell. There's no way I can distribute the PDF anyway. So I'd have to do it myself. I'd have to get a eBay account or something, and me doing that, and so therefore I have to really work on I have to work on um, so the reason why I'm doing the new notes is because of after doing my lecture, and I'm redoing the lectures I'm re-releasing the Aristotle lectures right now. Currently, they're being re-released. They're not re-recorded, but re-released. I don't think I could do a recording. I actually don't. I really like to spend this time doing a lot of writing, and I've been doing a lot of writing. I will have a piece on. I'll talk about this. What I just did. Um, I so the new notes. I'm not gonna. I'm gonna keep this. This is still very useful. Um, it was based on originally from the notebook from a colleague of mine did together, and my added my corrections and notes towards it from over 20 years ago. Okay, so this is maybe 30 years ago in college, graduate school. This was the notes we did it based on the teacher's class, Leopoldo Alvarez's class. So um, uh, I think it was always a very useful thing, and people said they liked it. Um, it doesn't, it's sold, but it sells, but not too well. I've had maybe 100 sales, 100 of them. I think I think it's the price. It's $30. Okay, electronic copy would probably be better, but it's the new version. What I'm going to not do in the new version is uh, my new version is going to be a different title. We're going to call it. Um, I don't know what I'm going to call it. Not a notebook. This is a notebook for Aristotle's politics. The next one I think we'll call a guide, a guide or a reading guide, a guide. Couldn't say the outline, a an outline, an outline for Aristotle politics. Yeah, maybe that's the working title outline. I think that might be like this. Um, uh, it is an extended outline with analysis, an analytic outline. Okay, maybe analytic or yeah, an analytic outline. Um, what I won't have in it is the pages of. I put blank pages in this thing, and I did it because I was hoping people would take it as use it as notes, put their own notes in it, which didn't happen. And that, I mean, people said, "Oh, you don't need it," and I got feedback that people said, it's wasted paper, and why are you going to put waste paper?" So in this version, I'm not going to do it, and I might actually even publish a separate volume of the charts and graphs for Aristotle's politics. So all the charts and graphs as a hard in a paperback form that people can use for like this. I have to check it. It might be too big. It may not be doable. We'll see what that is. Currently I have the online downloads because people say, "Oh, some of them are hard to read." So add a downline a download here, like here's the OCR, the download on that, so you can download it so they can. Um, um, I'll try the charts. The charts are available in that sense. There's a link to the charts in the book, so people can go find it. Like, um, so I think I might get the book done by the end of published in October. That would be a good thing. I have to go make the edits. I might send out people to get their thoughts. I think it's designed to. My purpose here would be to design this to be a little bit more different. I might have to go through it and add. I didn't really make. I didn't consistently put Becker notes. Why is because you're doing it. Sometimes when you're doing it, I was kind of, it was oral. I was transcribing. I was transcribing something orally onto a thing and transcribing it, and then cleaning it up, editing with editing tools. So I was dictating. I was also handwriting. I took handwriting things, took a picture of them. The picture then converted it to computer text, and then we edited. I mean, this is the new strategy I've been working in. It's speeding up writing in that sense. I do handwriting notes. I do handwriting things. Um, I'll handwrite some pages, take a picture of it. The thing corrects it, reads it. The AI then, cleans it up, and then there it is, right there. Um, and I check to see if the AI did it right, um, and sometimes the problem here is that I don't consistently put. Sometimes I did, sometimes I didn't. I don't know why. I think it just got strange, and it's not always useful because it is the design of the thing is chapter by chapter. So the outline is basically outlining a chapter. That's the real good thing about this. It's going through chapter by chapter and giving you an analytical outline of the whole chapter. Something I really didn't do here. Sometimes I did, but it may be like this. It wouldn't be. It's much more detailed than this. Much more detailed than this. That's why it's probably going to be a little longer then. Um, so that's the big thing. But I will. But I'm not going to put graphs in it. That's the big thing. There's no graphs. I could do a graph version. I could put one version with graphs and one without graphs. I could do that, but I don't want to because I want to keep the graphs tied to this volume and tied to this or the separate thing. Make it like this so people can choose what they want. Next thing is the summaries. Okay, my cliff notes, chapter by chapter summaries of this. I have I wrote up some summaries of the first two chapters. I sent it out to people. People picked what version they liked. They liked most people sent back the feedback of the second version. So if I do it, I think I'll do it that may be due in September. We'll see how that goes. Um, I will need to think about that, how that will work. Um, I am a little more suspicious about that. But again, both these two new projects are going to be made so that they can be UPubs. So that's my big goal. The second thing is writing my academic. I'm doing my paper on the form, which we talked about last week. I hope to get that done by this. I got my notice from the Polish Journal, the proofs in one. I'm waiting for the proofs of the second one. It might take them forever to get me the proofs. I'm hoping the proofs get back quickly because I think they're going to be edited, released sometime in this month or next month, which would be good. My chapter in a volume on Polish Constitution was released. They sent me the ebook. They sent me the e copy of the book. So that is, I have to go make an announcement. I have to go figure that out. The publication of that in there. What else? This is busy Clifford. I have an article that I want to finish on that. I just wrote a couple things about Pierre Menat. I told people last week I gave them the links to the two articles I did. I have I have written three pieces about Alain Benassault. One about his treatment of the regime, another one on his account of his Machiavelli, which I'm going to rewrite. I think I will rewrite that because I should add his dialogue, his Kingdom of Suffering with Violence, with his book. I don't know. I should just do the book. I think I'll review both, or just one. His book on essays on Machiavelli are not really been translated in English, and I might just do a review. I sent that to Mahoney, and I didn't send that to Mahoney. What did I send to Mahoney? I sent the second one. I sent his thing on Baton's on regime, and I like to see what Mahoney thinks, but Mahoney hasn't answered me. That's Dan's way of not always responding, because he's busy. Um, Word is pissing me off. It's opening it without being asked to open. Oh, it's because I was struggling with the computer before, and because um, it was well. Let's see what happens. So I got that maybe doing something with that. I'll wait for Dan. I'm sorry about the computer issues. It's been kind of strange today. Next thing, I have an article on. I wrote a piece, very critical of Roger Scruton. I've always been kind of a Scruton critic. I've never been convinced by Scruton. Um, I shared it with David Starkey, and Starkey replied to me that you should do something with this. And I know someone who's an editor for a journal because I know a lot of journal editors. I thought a UK journal might want this better, and I sent it to them, and it's going to be published by the Critic. So yes, yay! The Critic is going to publish it. So I get a first piece in a periodical. Yay! I haven't really done periodicals and things, mostly academic journals. Um, I have a different essay on Oakshott that I would like to do. I don't know who to send it to though. But I really don't know. I sent that to Mahoney also, Dan Mahoney, and I expect him to kind of give me some feedback. What does he think? Does he like it or not? I'm hoping he likes it. He'll be mad at my Scruton piece because he's a big cheerleader of Scruton. I have serious reservations about Scruton, his aestheticism and those kind of things. Um, so that was and the other thing. I'll just now talk about Corlitz's comment on last week's things. Corlitz, James, said, I've just started reading Minat's book, Tocqueville, la nature de la démocratie, which is Tocqueville's book on the nature of democracy, Tocqueville and the Nature of Democracy, which was translated into, it's available in English by Roman Littlefield. It should be still available. It came out in the 1990s. It was translated in the 1990s. This is Minot's classic, and he says he was wondering if the significance and influence of de Tocqueville has been a topic of discussion yet. And I think this is. I said to him, I mentioned Tocqueville many times. I think Tocqueville is very important. Tocqueville very much remains an important figure in our times. In fact, his critique of not only democracy in America, but also his book on the Ancien regime in the French Revolution, or the French, these two works and many of other works. His work on Algeria is still very, in other words, it's controversial, what he said about the problem of this, about the French operations and how this would always be problematic. Um, his essay on pauperism, about the problem of pauperism and the poor who become paupers, is still very important. Tocqueville remains one of the most important thinkers that shaping social sciences, and particularly sociology and political science. You look at someone like Tilly's whole Charles Tilly's, who's no longer with us, but Tilly was heavily influenced by Tocqueville's modeling of analysis, but so wasn't Martin Seymour Lipset in his approach to many subjects, including the rise of importance of the middle class, but also Lipset's whole argument about American exceptionalism, which a lot of people talk about. The concept of American exceptionalism is very much a Tocquevillian concept. Things like social trust, social capital by Putnam and gang, Robert Putnam and gang. This is very much a Tocquevillian book. In the late 1980s, there was a book by many authors, including I forget, Habits of the Heart. What's the Bella? Habits of the Heart. Habits of the Heart. Individualism, a commitment to the American. What is it? In American commitments to American life. It was published like in what year? It was published like in 1985 with Robert Bella, who's famous. One of his big works was on, but a series of other authors. He was an American sociologist who did sociology of religion, and focused on this. His famous things on the civic religion, on American civil and the covenant, the question of covenant, American civic religion concerns. But Habit of the Hats was this big book that really fundamentally was it was part of the whole argument of the communitarian, the liberal communitarian debate of the late 80s and early 90s that shaped much of political thought. Even someone like, what's his name? Revolt of the Elites. Christopher Latch was heavily influenced by Tocqueville. Tocqueville is probably one of the most still Tocqueville. Now there's criticisms. In fact, this issue, the October issue of the New Criterion magazine, has in fact, what is it? Is it? Let me get this New Criterion. The New Criterion magazine, this September issue, it has it's a whole series of essays on democracy in America. It is the core pace of this. It's symposium. Democracy in American Symposium. The first essay is introduced by Roger Kimball, the editor himself. There is an essay by Victor Davis Hanson, Our Athenian American Democracy, which Hanson kind of argues that the Athenian argument. Then Dan Mahoney raises the question of my friend Dan Mahoney wrote Tocqueville versus the progressive. So therefore, Tocqueville, the warning about the progressivism in the progressive administrative state. Then James Pearson is about the bureaucracy sawing America's capital. The Washington Octopus about this, which is again, this is Tocqueville had a very much in Democracy America feared about the administrative structure and the growth of administrative centralization. And then last is of course Glenn Elmer's, who I know, and Glenn is attacked. Glenn is doing the old Claremont. Well, I mean, I'm gonna. He's gonna get mad if he sees this, but they're making the same Claremont argument, that the old argument from the 1990s. Oh my God, Tocqueville doesn't talk about the Declaration of Independence. Therefore, Tocqueville misunderstands America. Horse nonsense. The over-privileging of the Declaration, the overemphasizing of rights is one of the problematic problems. And Tocqueville picks on this. I mean, Marianne Glendin's, her famous book published in the 1990s, who was a legal scholar at Harvard University, I think she's long retired. She became, during the Bush administration, probably the ambassador for the Vatican. She was Catholic. But Marianne Glendin was is it Mary Glendin? No, what is it? What is Rights Talk? I want to get the name right. Rights Talk. Yeah, Marianne Glendin. Our Rights Talk, published in 1991, which is a saying that rights, the language of rights, trump democratic discourse, and it destroys democratic discourse. So the problem with, and there's always been a tradition on the right, very critical, saying that, hey, listen, this goes all the way back to the Bradford fight, about the Declaration, about the question of the role of equality. Jaffa thought equality was the core of the American tradition and a conservative principle. And that essay, Jaffa was attacking Kendall. Bradford defended Kendall and attacked Jaffa, saying that no, conservatism, the concept of equality, if taken to its logical string, is a radical position and undermines self-government. Now, in many ways, Bradford's argument is the Tocquevillian position. That Tocqueville does not think equality is bad. He thinks equality is part of, this is a product of democratic societies. You can't escape it. You can't. There's an element of Tocqueville that assumes that democracy is inevitable. That after the French Revolution and after certain events, because of Christianity and certain things like this, because of Christianity and the rise of the democratic spirit and after the American Revolution and the French Revolution, that once you've gotten democratic. An epoch of democratic history, you're stuck with democracy, and that democracy is, in fact, equality does play a role in democracy. He's not saying that's not important, but he says that this is dangerous, that the democratic principle, if taken to extreme, if equality is taken to extreme, it becomes a destructive phenomenon. And this is basically the famous line, the ending line. I don't remember the end. You can't. We love. In other words, ending line of Minette's book on democracy. That it's not that we don't. It's the question. We have to love democracy moderately. It's not that we should love democracy, but we should not moderate. We should love it moderately. We should moderate our love of democracy. We should temper it. Because the problem of an unmoderated democratic principle, an unregulated commitment to equality, ultimately leads to the destruction of political liberty and political freedom. It leads to the soft despotism. It leads to despotic government. That's the warning of both Tocqueville and Democracy in America and in this. So, this is what I'm going to say. The Claremonters are their attachment to the Lincolnian position leads them to not realizing that they are carrying the egalitarian disease. The Declaration is not, I mean, we could argue the Declaration is part of our tradition. Yes, equality. And they're going to always, and people like Glenn will say to me, well, we don't mean equality of outcome. We only mean, but Bradford always said to me, and De La Mora also hits this. I think De La Mora's point is right, that the danger here is that equality of opportunity leads to equality of outcomes, the demand for equality of outcomes. Because you can never really get equality of opportunity because of human difference. In other words, there's always going to be inherited difference. In other words, we're never going to have perfectly just levels of access. Not everyone's going to have opportunities. That this idea of equality of opportunity is itself kind of a now there's equality under the law in that sense, yes. I would even argue that that political rule assumes that everyone is equal under law. Okay, this is a fundamental. That's not democratic even. This is that every citizen. See, democratic view of a citizen is more broader than the oligarchic condition. All citizens, and therefore, even in American law, there's not the right of a citizen, the right of a subject are not the same. So we're not equal in all our rights. We have different levels. A citizen and a subject have different elements of rights, have different. This is the problem. We have to always remember the language of rights in Anglo-Saxon law was always regarded in terms of privileges and immunities, right? This is what rights meant, privileges and immunities. That privileges, things that we were granted, things that we have right to, and that therefore our rights, our privileges and immunities of a citizen is different than a subject and an alien. That the status of citizen, subject, and alien, other, is essential to understand the political element. And I'm ignoring the friend-enemy problem because I don't think the law, even the law does recognize the friend-enemy problem. It has to. In other words, the enemy, the hostis even they get law, but they don't get the same law. In other words, there is an idea that the people of the same class get treated the same. Now, this is there is an equality even in differentiations of groups and classes, but the idea is that there's a uniform principle, right? This is that's the problem. Is what do we mean by equality? The problem with the Declaration has always been, and Harvey Mansfield's very controversial article that he wrote in the New Criterion, where he does the line, and that was then published in the Wall Street Journal, the self-evident half-truth of the Declaration. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain rights, right? We hold these truths, not truth. It's two axiomatic structures, not one. It's thus the Declaration's equality seems more to be axiomatic statements of belief, not things that we must, not teleological goals we must accomplish, not propositions. See, Lincoln creates propositions. A proposition is something we test. A truth is not something we test. A truth is. It's creedal. A truth is always a creedal position. It's axiomatic. We accept it. It's not something, a proposition is something we test. See, that's Lincoln. This is the radicalization of Lincoln. Lincoln at Gettysburg takes truths and makes us test us, forces us to test them as propositions. And therefore, we have to commit ourselves to a proposition, to validating it. This is liberalism. This is progressive. See, Lincoln is ultimately the true progressive in this fundamental sense. This is why I side with Bradford and Kendall against Jaffa on this. Jaffa is blind, but Jaffa is a liberal. Jaffa was a 19th, come on, given his origins of New York City, of a certain ethnicity. He grew up mentally a New Deal Democrat, and yes, he became kind of a Goldwater supporter and like Reagan, but they still understood. They never escaped the near New Dealism of the Lincoln. Lincoln was, it was Roosevelt's. And Roosevelt made Lincoln the model. I mean, we get the Lincoln Memorial. That's FDR's gift. FDR, the Democrat, loved Lincoln, the father of the Republican Party, right? The first Republican president is a progressive Democrat. Embrace Lincoln because why? Because in Lincoln, I'm going to throw Glenn Elmer's problematic characteristic of Tocqueville, the problematic characteristic of Lincoln, because it's Lincoln who ultimately has within him, in his way, he fetishizes the Declaration, the fetishization of the Declaration, making it something it's not, turning it into Euclidean proposition that we have to commit ourselves to. This ultimately becomes the rationale that progressivism emerges from. And this is why the progressives, that's why I was amused when Ben Boychuk talked about him publishing a piece about, who is it? Come on, American Mercury writer. Come on. The American Mercury writer. He's gonna break my brain. It's blanking. It's age. Mencken, H.L. Mencken. Mencken. He wrote Boychuk wrote an article about Mencken. I don't know where he published it. He published a thing on Mencken celebrating. And Boychuk is part of the Claremont group. I think he now works at American Mind. I mean, it works at with Blaze or something like that. I don't know where he works. He was for a long time working. He was an editor at American Greatness, but then they had a fight. The editorial team had a dispute with the owner, and the editors. Now Julie Ponzi left American Mind, eventually got hired at Chronicles, and I think Bonachek went to Boychuk went to work with Peterson at Mays, so Blaze, in some organization with Blaze. But Boychuk's piece on Mencken is very surprising, given Mencken's position on Lincoln, as Mencken saw Lincoln as the American Lenin. I even said this to Boychuk. I said, "Did your Claremont, and given your Claremont thing, aren't you committing a little bit of heresy by writing a praising piece about Mencken?" Ooh, this is my devil side. This is, I think, why Glenn gets mad at me, because I poke the Jaffaites a little bit, friendly poking. But this is the problem here. This is why. Okay. Why am I doing? I did this because I was talking about his piece on Tocqueville's limitations. It's not silly. It's a good piece. I'm not going to say that there are limitations. The limitations in Tocqueville are, there's a problem in Tocqueville too. That is the historicism, the perception of the inevitability of certain things. There is a kind of historicism in Tocqueville. There is a misunderstanding of associations. No, he misunderstands it. He doesn't have appropriate understanding of the basis for associations in law. And I think he doesn't understand in a way someone like Maitland does, not far better. So therefore, you have to understand the way laws of trust and law, how the concept of legal trust and the emergence of concepts like of trust that emerges, that becomes the legal framework network that a civil that associations. See, the problem with Tocqueville's analysis on civil associations, he um, now he said, oh no, America's maybe. And the problem is when liberals in Europe look at Tocqueville's discussion of this, why don't we bring associations over here and build civil society over here? The problem is you can't build civil society organizations in a civil law model. You don't have the legal means. The civil law model doesn't have a doctrine of, it doesn't have the torts, it doesn't have the common law traditions, it didn't have even the concepts of trust, which is a very, this is, in Germanic law and civil law models, the idea of trust is completely, trusts are completely alien. And what are trusts? Trusts are non-state uh, 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 legal structures which create a permanent interest, and that a legal permanent body that is therefore doing this, not a corporate body. See, corporate entities are creatures of the state, the creatures of the king, and creatures of the body. They can be they have you have to get incorporated. And therefore your incorporation is an illegal act. A trust is a private act that is recognized by law. It is a private agreement by parties recognized by law, not authorized, and that the state, the state has limits to jurisdiction. Now, there's been attempts by over time to limit trust. I mean, Henry VIII tried to abolish trusts, usuries and things like that. The act of trust, act against usuries, and it's like this. But then after he died, the English the English repealed that, and and I think never to understand the role of trust in English law it is to understand civil society, your associations, your leagues, your organizations, your NGOs, all this stuff are through trusts, and therefore this is the legal groundwork upon which civil associations emerge. Now, Tocqueville sees the associations, sees their goodness, thinks that they are the correct way that this is the means of the associations and the formulation of associations that Americans and I would even argue English people do, that these are the way you fight what Tocqueville says is individualism. What is individualism? This is the destruction of, it is the mere sole reduction of people to, in society, to being isolated individuals and powerless. And therefore becomes easily manipulated by the powers that dominate the state. And therefore this creates the model of the democratic despotism and also the dangers of administrative despotism that occurs in democratic despotism. It's not just simply majority rule; it's that the majority now becomes the state and the administrative body representing the will of the larger entity, because every will is it's so atomized at the level of individuals, that level of collective individuals. It becomes in other words, there's no network. You have no association. In other words, you don't have no. This is what Tocqueville talks about: the end of associations. If you're just single individuals collectivized, it's very difficult. Everyone just gets. There's no ability to stand up, and every individual is by themselves. They're not strong enough to resist the larger force of the majority. You need networks, you need structures, you need these communities, you need these organizations of friends and networks and associations. You know, from fraternal relationships by which you support each other, by then which you can then not act as individual but act collectively. And therefore, this is the perception of why Tocqueville is important, because he understands this. But the limit of this is he doesn't understand that this is within a specific legal historical context, and that without that context, it doesn't work the same way. This is why civil society organizations in Europe act as agents of, in other words, this is when, and this is the danger of once you become a civil law model, once you become a state society, a society shaped by a state, not a society shaped by citizens themselves in associations. That's what civil society means. Civil society means that society is shaped by individual citizens, the citizens through their associations and their fraternal and their different levels of, including townships and villages, which are even though there may be legal constructs of the state. Remember what the English tradition is that the cities and the towns are not exercising their own power, but exercising royal power that the crown gives to that enables them to through home rule to operate. In other words, they're not operating their own. The home rule does not mean that they're exercising their own power. They're exercising the powers given to them by the state or the crown. The state and the crown are identical in this logic. In other words, that this is the idea that the nature of in other words, this is interesting. The nature of, if you look how state and see the federal governments and state governments, they're dual sovereignties. They're separate sovereignties. That states are sovereign and the union is sovereign, and that there is this conjoined sovereignty, where certain ones, the federal government has certain things they can't do, both sides things that they can do, and other things that they can't do, things that they can both do. These are the shared powers, reserved powers, and denied powers, right? In constitutional law, that you have to understand that structure there in light of that. Now, in a state society model, everything is centralized in the state. In other words, that there's and that aiding agency is, in other words, is a construct of the state, and that everything is more centralized. And you have in a state society, you have both political centralization, which monarchies had before, but remember, but also administrative centralization, and this is what Tocqueville fears the most. And this is Tocqueville doesn't see that this is not a simply European problem. This is a problem of the state. The state framed in a Roman law, civil law context has no mechanisms to prevent the problem of administrative centralization. Okay. Once you destroy common law structures, you eventually, in other words, what the French Revolution does to French law is to destroy the feudal system and the feudal law. And in other words, it takes the Roman law, and because remember, technically, even English law, it is developed from Roman law. All law comes from Roman law, church. What it does is that what the civil law model does, it's called Napoleon, right? It is, yes, there was a previous Germanic version, the German civil code, but that is a product of, again, revolutionary France. The older traditions of law were still Roman, but it was that there was a centralization in logical jurisprudence of the modern of the civil law, that centralized jurisdictional control. See, and that's something Schmidt talks about the difference between, let's say, the jurisdictional state where there's different jurisdictions and therefore law is always regionalized within jurisdictions. And that was also interjurisdiction, not only within terms of like concepts like states or borders or things like that, or political units, but also social units, social classes, social groups. There was like a jurisdiction, class jurisdictions, people with different classes and different. In other words, the guilds. You belong to a guild. You're in only certain people had authority. Certain you belong to the member of the church. Well, we were just if you were a member of an order, the normal church authorities the bishop had no authority over you. Only your head of order had authority over you. See, this is what a jurisdictional structure is, and this is feudal. In other words, and England still has that feudal structure. It still exists in the way they have, titles of fellowships, fellows. A fellow at Oxford College or a Cambridge College or a school has certain rights and privileges that are now their life. It's life tenure only. It's not hereditary tenure, in the sense that you can't pass it on. Some things you could pass on, but some things you can't. The life peers, a life peerage, has certain entitlement. Bishoprics, again, has life peerage. It has a status that when you become bishop, you have two persons. You have the person who is the bishop, and the bishop of his office. So therefore, we have to understand the fundamental nature of how English common law fundamentally altered the Roman law. That was a unique aspect, because I think it's a product of the cross fertilization of Nordic, the Danes, the Nordic and Germanic principles, mixed with Anglo-Saxon, but also Celtic, Celt, old customary traditions, Danelaw. The idea of writs as a hand me down from the Danes. What are writs? Writs are simply just existing orders of the government, the king, or in other words, they're pre-written laws that they're executive acts, orders that are already written of the king or the ruler, and that therefore you go to the court simply just to get it, and the judge will basically issue it, and therefore it is an executory act of cease and desist. The famous one is what is the famous? Come on, habeas corpus. Habeas corpus. What is habeas corpus? Bring me the body. You have someone you're detaining, the state official or an official is holding someone. Bring the authority person to the court to make sure this is what is being done is valid. Habeas corpus is the writ of habeas corpus, which is a very important writ for individual liberty and constraint on government. In other words, that's another aspect, is that the nature of the writ system was not only a check on other people, but also a check on the king. It was a self-check in that sense. So those are some of the things that we have to talk about, and that's why Tocqueville is interesting. See, Tocqueville still, I'll defend Tocqueville as getting a lot more right than he gets wrong, and I disagree with the Claremont people on that. Because he says his missing Declaration of Independence. Doesn't understand something. No, he understands it better than they do. Ironically, Now, of course, he's writing Tocqueville is in America before Lincoln, so therefore, oh, Lincoln changes everything. That's the Claremont Jaffa mentality. Well, I don't think so. I think Lincoln problematizes everything. Um, we can't escape Lincoln. That's the other thing. I think Tocqueville's right on a certain level. This is once certain choices have been made, you certain opportunities you can't go back on. That we're in the post-Lincoln world, we can't undo the damage Lincoln did. We're stuck with Lincoln in a certain sense now. The question is, can we mitigate his damage? I think we can, but that's a different question. I think Tocqueville offers us the means to do so. But that's just, again, that's another question. Well, I'm in my hour. I'd shut up. I'm tired. My throat is dying. I hope I'm not going to get sick, from my, the weather's changing. And, my wife said, oh, you should enjoy the day out there. And I say, tomorrow we have Shakespeare. We're doing Act 2 and Act 3 of Midsummer Night's Dream. So I have to go reread the play again just to refresh myself in those acts. And that's it. I think that's it for the day. Maybe it's not that satisfying for you guys, but you liked it, hit the like button. We had 2 people came. We had a couple people come. We had a couple people go. I hope he liked my introduction of Tocqueville. I can talk about Tocqueville more. If he asks specific questions about Tocqueville, it will be worth to do. But that's it. I hope you guys have a good Friday. And again, we're on the Monday through Fridays. I'm reposting the Aristotle's Politics, reading chapter by chapter. Those will be done. We have that to the end of the year and part of January. I think I will start recording. I said I'd do Machiavelli. I think I'm going to keep my word and do Machiavelli. Machiavelli's discourses. I have to start, doing the prep for it. I am sure that's my promise. I hope to be writing some things. I have to make my application soon for the Midwest conference in April, so I can go present my Aristotle. Get my real goal is by next year, by the end of next year, to have next year be my big birthday, and I will hope to have by the end of the summer. I think I will write to get the book done. I want to get the big book done. The Aristotle's Regime Science. I'm making real progress on book 5. I think I have a very good working outline how to progress the discussion of kingship. I think that is going to be the big problem. The kingship in book 5, it has to be a separate thing, and I think I'm going to make I either do that, don't do it, and then I figured out how I'm going to handle book 6. Book 6 is going to be, it is what it is. It's going to be book 6 of the Politics is about establishing regimes. And it's very interesting that he addresses it only after dealing with change and preservation. So I need to talk about that. I need to talk about why does he bring. He starts, in fact, in book 4 and end of book 4, he talks about establishing regimes. He starts talking about establishing regimes, how to establish regimes. He gives us the preparation is that he deals with the middle class. He deals with the need for blending, balancing the parts. You don't get mixed. This is not. We get this not the creation of the mixed regime or the best possible regime. But the best possible, it is really the establishment of the regime, not the mixed regime that people say the tradition says, but this is about establishing any regime in that sense that was going to go. What are the regimes that are possible to establish? Well, he then does not really establish a polity, a regime called regime, or the mixed polity, right? Polity, as people would say. In Book 6, he only establishes democracies and oligarchies. Book 7, he will talk about the regime we would pray for, aristocracy. But then that's really a test case. You have to, what he recommends there is almost like testing you to see if you've been paying attention. In Book 5, why is Book 5 there? Why he needs to keep before he can. In other words, you get the establishment of the offices. Yes, the last 3 books, chapters of Book 4, he talks about the offices, and we'd expect a greater discussion. He talks about the offices, the ruling offices, liberating offices, the ruling offices, the liberating offices, the general offices, the things that carry services out, what we would call the executive branch, right? And then the adjudicative offices, right? So these are these offices are the physical aspects of the regime. These are the institution, the embodiment of the regime. And we're confronted with a problem here. Stops there. He doesn't have a larger argument about establishing them. He then talks about preservation and change, and then only after preservation and change does he talk about, in Book 6, how do you establish regimes, how do you set up democracies. You spend significant part, book 5 chapters on democracy. The first chapter introduces the question of establishing what he's going to try to establish. But the rest of chapter 1 is going to be about how do you set up democracies and oligarchies. But then he focuses the shift to democracies. Then the next 4 chapters so the first 5 chapters are democracy, and then 2 chapters on oligarchy. Why does he spend much more time on democracy than oligarchy? Oligarchies are easier. No politeia called politeia, no kingship, and no tyranny. Now, because a tyranny, of course, you're not going to do tyranny. But he's just talked about preserving tyranny. Okay. So that's why, in many ways, the structure has always been confronting me in that sense. It's like I talked about when the paper went to give the Midwest, it's going to be on the problematic character of preservation. Why did he spend so much time on change? He spends, 4 general statements, three chapters, so 7 chapters on political change, 2 chapters on preservation. Imbalance. Why? You have to know change. Change is more important. Preservation's less important. Is it easier? Don't know. So that's the problem with it. That's a thing. And then you have the 2 weird discussions of the two things about changes, the separate account of change and preservation only for monarchy. I would figure that, he gets 3 chapters of change. We should get 3 regimes of democracy, oligarchy, and aristocracy, and politeia. You should get similar preservation. No. But in monarchy, you get discussion of why kingships and monarchies deviate. Then you get preservation immediately after it. So why no similar chapters on the regimes? He just brushes all. He just in the preservation of the other regimes. He just democracy and oligarchy. He mentions them, which is very interesting. That's a different. It's part of. It's really the chapter 9 is where he kind of talks about the difference between things, how you preserve democracies versus how you preserve oligarchies. Nothing on aristocracies, nothing on poder. And then kingship is separate. Kingship and tyranny is the separate argument. We're a chapter on, there's a perfectly called, a chapter on preservation and a chapter on change. No, sorry, a chapter on change. 10 and 11 is preservation. That's how it works. So that's it. So that's what that's how we'll wrap the book up. And I hope I'm going to wrap the book up. It's been 15 years working on it. 15 years working on it. So it's something I thought about doing after the 2004 book, the Aristotle's Regime Science. I'm working on it. It's been struggling with it. You like it. I don't see anyone liking it, so don't worry about it. You like it, you do it. You come back here later. You can find me on social media. The links are below. Please follow me there. Another thing you can do is you can follow me on academic social media. This academic social media links are below those. You can you want to help me subscribe it, you can do so through be a patron at Subscribe Star, Patreon. I don't care which, but if you want to do it. It helps. It's not like anyone has done it. I'm not big enough, even though we're over 507. A couple new people signed up. Yes, congratulations. So thank you for joining. Please do get people to join us. If you're not this, encourage us to join. Next thing you can do is buy one of my books. The books list of books there below. They're currently available. You can do so either through your local bookstore, through an online distributor, you know who they are, or through the publisher. The Morris University book, I think, is going to be a hard time getting. I think it's out of print. My wife talked to the editor recently. I think maybe she needed to remind her, "Are you going to do a new print run of it?" Because you can't get copies anymore. And that's it. Well, we'll see what we're doing. Well, take care and have a good weekend. I'll see you guys next week on the live stream. Take care. Bye-bye. Have a good day.